What's happening, guys? Part 2 of this bike build. We've got the new flooring down. Last time we had the foam flooring, so now we've got some nice solid PVC flooring. That's pretty cool. We were going to look at this fault with the throttle bodies. I think we're going to leave that at the moment, and we're going to change these rear sets out for the aftermarket ones. So let's get going. They're called Neverland. They're probably the cheapest rear sets that are on eBay. Cool little key ring thing, launch key. Instructions, that's what we like to see. GA6R. Might have a bit of an issue there. That's seen better days. Before taking it off, it's always best to mark it where it is. Right, so I've got measuring tape. We're having to measure the bolts because it says for this one, number 9, socket head M8 by 15mm. So you've got to measure it. M8, that's M8 by 15mm. 50mm, not 15mm, 50mm. There you go. So that's the bolt. It's very confusing. Right, I've come to the conclusion there's definitely some bolts missing. So it looks like I found the right bolt, but I've only got one in the amount of bolts that I've got. But I did find this one, which is similar, but it's got a capped head. Not exactly what I want, but I'm going to put it in there temporarily. Okay, now it's time to pretty much Loctite everything and get it onto the bike, where we can start adjusting where the gear shifter is. Time for breakfast. Everything's tight, now we've just got to adjust the gear linkage. You may want the gear linkage there, or you may want it a bit higher or lower. All you have to do is turn the rod, and that will make it higher or lower depending how you like it. After you fitted them, make sure you can select gears. That's one side done, let's do the other side. So this side should be a lot easier. You haven't got to do the shift rod, but just putting all this stuff on the floor here, and the cap fell out at the bottom of the foot peg, so that probably means the other side's just as loose. Let's have a look here. Oh yeah, that would be an easy loss. So what we're going to do, because you don't even need to take them out for any reason, have a bit of glue. That should stay in there nicely now. You haven't got to take them off because the bolt's at the back. There's no nut inside, so no need to take them off. There will be a day when I'm actually going to take this apart and make it into a table. I'll do another video for that, but that's for another day. Today, we're doing the rear sets. Okay, so these bolts are pretty solid. The bottom one's starting to round off already, and the top one is pretty stubborn. So we're just going to have another go at it with a different technique. Put the socket in. I can feel it go all the way to the end, but give it a little tap anyway. You can use a hammer to do that instead of a lifetime guarantee ratchet. And then give it a good, try and keep the socket straight. And you know what, it might be even a bit better to use a shorter a bit as well, so you don't have as much potential movement in the socket. So something like this instead. No, that's That's pretty much rounding straight off. Let's try the bottom one. That's pretty much rounding straight off as well. So there's different techniques of getting bolts out that are seized. The most common technique, and I'll probably try that next, is to use a Torx bit. It grips better than a Allen key. I can't find all my hammers, so I'm using a body hammer for this. Try and find a Torx bit that's roughly the same size, if not slightly larger. Where you've rounded it off, it will make it into a circle. Torx bit should go straight in with a bit of a tap. Torx bit didn't work for the bottom one. The next step on these is probably to give it a little tap round with a chisel. When doing these, I like to use a punch with a nice sharp edge. You can use chisels as well, I've seen people do it, but it tends to cut the bolt in half when they're really stuck instead of punching into the bolt. You want to try and punch and dig into the bolt and move it around. So I've been hitting it around a bit. It's digging into the bolt more and more. Unfortunately, it's not moving yet. Still not moving. The bolt's still not moving. That bolt is stuck in there solid. Another good thing to use is Loctite freeze and release. It freezes the bolt and gets the lubricant down the sides of the threads when it contracts, and then when it expands again, you've already got the lubricated threads, so it should be easier to come out. Also, when bolts are this stiff, sometimes you've got to use a bigger hammer. It has started to move, but it is a tough one. Well, we've been pounding that bolt for quite a while now. I think the next option, because we don't need the bolt, is probably to drill the head off. The head should just fall off, something like that. Then you can do the same with the top bolt. That's it. So now we'll take this bracket off and have a look at what we can do with this master cylinder. Note to self, buy better long nose pliers. These are our bolts that will cause us issues. Let's try and get them out. A good pair of mole grips should get these out. These aren't a good pair. I think the best thing to do now is get the cylinder off, drill them bolts out, clean all this up, and then get it back on, bleed it up, and go from there. I've got a small pair of mole grips I found. Bin worthy, I think. Safety first. Unfortunately, these bolts are stuck in there. We've tried to drill this one out and broke our drill bit. Not a very productive episode, but we got the left side fitted. Unfortunately, we did have their bolts seized into the master cylinder on the rear. We'll sort them out next time, and then hopefully we've got a rear set sorted. And on to the next bit.